What happens when Hollywood's most bankable action star shows up for what's supposed to be a routine morning show interview, only to realize he's been set up? What happens when that interview turns hostile fast, when the host blindsides him with accusations, personal jabs, and questions that blur the line between journalism and ambush? You're about to witness one of the most explosive, live television moments ever broadcast. Tom Cruise didn't just come to promote a film. He ended up defending his entire worldview. And the man sitting across from him, George Stephanopoulos, who clearly came prepared for war. Before we unpack this train wreck of an interview, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below. Where's the line between tough journalism and a personal takedown? Now, let's rewind to that morning. The Good Morning America studio was buzzing with the usual pre-show hustle. Producers double-checked camera angles, technicians fine-tuned audio, and the lights on set shimmered with studio, polished perfection. It was supposed to be a straightforward, feel-good interview. Tom Cruise had arrived to talk about the latest mission, Impossible Installment, a box office juggernaut that was already smashing records and winning critical praise. Tom walked in with his signature charm and professionalism, exchanging warm greetings with the crew, making light jokes with the makeup team. He'd done this dance 1,000 times. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until he sat across from George. "Good to see you, George," Tom said, offering a confident smile and handshake. George barely looked up. "Thanks for being here," he replied coolly, thumbing through his notes with a sharpness that felt loaded. Then the cameras rolled. George opened with the usual fluff. "We're here with Tom Cruise, whose new Mission Impossible film is smashing records. Tom, congratulations." "Thanks, George. It's been an incredible journey, and I'm thrilled audiences are connecting with the film," Tom replied, slipping into his well-practiced rhythm. But what came next hit like a sucker punch. "Before we dive into the movie," George said, voice suddenly tightening, "let's talk about the reports. Allegations of a hostile work environment on set. We're hearing about screaming, about difficult behavior. How do you respond?" Tom's smile froze for a split second. The air in the studio shifted. "George, I'm not sure what reports you're referring to," Tom replied, measured. "I work closely with my crews and always prioritize collaboration and respect." George leaned in, tone sharpening. "That's not what we've heard. Our sources say you've become controlling, multiple unnecessary takes, reduced crew members to tears, ignoring safety advice on stunts. Is that the real Tom Cruise the public never sees?" Audience members began shifting uncomfortably. This wasn't the lighthearted interview they'd come for. Tom's jaw set. "There's been some misunderstanding. Yes, I'm passionate. Yes, I demand excellence for myself and the team. But I've never fostered a hostile environment. I work with the same crews again and again because we've built relationships grounded in trust." But George wasn't finished. "Mutual respect. We've documented incidents, Tom. Yelling at assistant directors, disregarding safety warnings, endangering production timelines. Don't audiences deserve to know about that?" Off camera, Tom's publicist stepped forward, eyes wide. This wasn't the segment they agreed to. This was a full-on ambush. "George, I'm going to stop you right there," Tom said, voice even but edged with steel. "These allegations are baseless. I've worked in this industry for over 40 years. My record, and the people I've worked with, speak for themselves." But George doubled down. "It's not just your work, Tom. It's your affiliations, your outbursts, your personal relationships. Your reputation isn't just about films anymore. It's about the kind of man people think you are. Doesn't the public deserve the full picture?" The camera operators exchanged glances. Even the control room was tense. This wasn't just a tough interview. This was a televised collision. Tom took a slow breath, channeling every ounce of poise from decades in the spotlight. "George, I came here to talk about a film. Something that brought together hundreds of professionals, and is giving audiences joy around the world. I don't know why you've chosen to make this personal, but I won't let you hijack the work of an entire cast and crew for a tabloid hit job. But George wasn't letting go. And that's exactly the issue. Tom, you want to control the narrative, George said, leaning forward. You only want to discuss what makes you look good. But real journalism, it means asking the hard questions, the ones people actually care about. And people want to know who Tom Cruise really is behind the charm and movie star smile. The energy in the studio shifted. What had started as a typical morning segment now felt like something else entirely. Crew members, once moving casually around the set, froze mid-step. The audience glanced nervously at one another, unsure if they were witnessing bold journalism or a slow, motion train wreck happening live. Tom's calm exterior began to fray. Not from anger, but from confusion. Genuine confusion. George, he said slowly, trying to stay composed. I'm happy to answer real questions about my work, my craft, my films. But this isn't journalism. You came in with a story already written. You're just searching for the sound bites to match it. So now you're questioning my integrity. George fired back, his voice tightening. Tom, I've been doing this for decades. I've interviewed presidents, Nobel Prize winners, world leaders. I know what journalism is. He paused, then added pointedly. Maybe the problem isn't my questions. Maybe the problem is you're not used to being challenged. Maybe you're so surrounded by yes men that you've forgotten what accountability feels like. That was the moment something cracked. The practiced smile dropped from Tom's face entirely. The charm was gone. What remained was cold realization. This wasn't a press tour. This wasn't about the film. This was an ambush. Years of media training had prepared him for tough interviews, for criticism, even for controversy. But not for this level of pointed hostility. Not here on America's so-called friendliest morning show. Tom's voice dropped, now edged with warning. George, I think we need to reset. I came on your show to discuss a project I'm proud of. My team is proud of. Audiences are responding to it. I didn't sign up for ambushes, personal attacks, or unverified claims dressed up as journalism. He stared hard at George. This isn't journalism. It's tabloid baiting. George's eyes narrowed, and a flicker of satisfaction crossed his face. He had drawn blood, and he wasn't letting up. Tabloid baiting. He repeated, mockingly. Tom, these are legitimate questions. Questions people are asking about your conduct, your influence, your role in this industry. Just because you don't like the questions doesn't mean they're not valid. Tom snapped back, voice tight now. What people, George? Who exactly are you referring to? Because I've worked with the same directors, same producers, same crews, film after film. Are you saying they're all lying? Christopher McQuarrie has directed multiple Mission Impossible movies with me. Are you accusing him of covering for me? Are all my co-stars just faking it? George leaned back smugly, enjoying the tension he'd manufactured. You're deflecting, he said coolly. You're hiding behind a few trusted collaborators to avoid the broader pattern. Just because some people continue working with you doesn't mean others haven't had issues. Tom laughed dryly, a bitter edge to it. Industry insiders, he echoed, voice laced with disbelief. George, you keep citing these nameless, faceless sources. Who are they? Where are they? Because real accusations, real journalism, requires people willing to put their name on the record. What you're doing is gossip, and dressing it up as news. The studio was dead silent now. No laughter, no movement, just the quiet whir of cameras and lights. In the control room, a panicked director hovered over the commercial button, unsure whether to cut or let the showdown play out. George smirked. His tone turned icy. Tom, I get it. You like to control the image. You've spent years crafting it. But when you reach your level of fame, of cultural impact, the public deserves to know the real you. Not just the one on magazine covers. The Tom's voice raised, just slightly. The real me. He exhaled, fighting to maintain control. You're not interested in the real me, George. You're interested in tearing something down. This is a hit piece. You're throwing out accusations, suggesting scandal, and when I push back with facts, you accuse me of dodging. You're not investigating. You're assassinating. George leaned in again, sensing vulnerability and pressing further. So you're saying every single person who's raised concerns about your behavior is lying? George's tone was sharp now, almost accusatory. You're telling me that all the reports about your intensity, your so-called perfectionism crossing the line into something more, are just fabrications. What I'm saying, Tom replied, voice low but simmering with restrained fury, is that you haven't presented a single concrete allegation from a named, credible source. You've hidden behind vague phrases like reports suggest and sources say. That's not journalism, George. That's gossip. And when you dress up gossip as fact on national television, you're not informing the public. You're misleading them. A wave of discomfort rippled through the audience. People began shifting in their seats, whispering, uncertain whether they were witnessing an interview or a public takedown. George leaned in, sensing his opportunity. Let's talk about accountability, he said smoothly. You've spent decades crafting this larger-than-life image, an action hero, a flawless movie star. Don't you think that image comes with responsibility, with transparency? Don't you think the public deserves to know who you really are? Tom's composure finally cracked. Who I really am, he echoed, incredulous. George, I've worked in this industry for over 4 decades. No scandals, no arrests, no lawsuits. I show up, I do my work. I train relentlessly. I perform my own stunts to give the audience something real. And I work with teams who keep coming back film after film. So tell me, what exactly am I hiding? George smiled, and this time it wasn't even subtle. It was antagonistic. Well, since you brought up honesty, let's talk about your beliefs. Your affiliations with organizations that many consider controversial. Your public statements. Don't you think people deserve to know how those beliefs might influence your decisions? How you hire? How you treat people who think differently than you? That was the moment Tom realized. This had never been about the movie. The interview had been a trap from the start. Stop right there, Tom said, his voice cutting through the studio like a blade. The room fell into complete silence. What you're doing right now is religious discrimination. On national television. You're implying that my personal faith makes me unfit to work in this industry, or that it affects how I treat others. That's not journalism, George. That's bigotry. George blinked, caught off guard. Tom, I'm not attacking your beliefs, he said quickly. I'm simply asking how they might influence your professional behavior. That's a fair question for someone in the public eye. Tom's reply was sharp and immediate. No, George. What you're doing is implying that because of my faith, I treat people unfairly or create toxic work environments. You're leaning on stereotypes and calling them journalism. That is discrimination, plain and simple. In the control room, chaos reigned. Producers shouted over one another, some calling to cut the feed, others urging to let it play out. Studio executives were being patched in mid-broadcast. Sensing the narrative slipping away, George pushed back one last time. Tom, all I'm trying to do is give the public a full picture of who you are. If you've got nothing to hide, why are you so defensive? Why not just answer the questions? Tom turned away from George and looked directly into the camera, addressing the audience at home. To everyone watching, I came here in good faith to discuss a film that hundreds of people worked hard to create. Instead, I walked into an ambush, unverified claims, personal attacks, and religious discrimination masquerading as journalism. This isn't how the media should behave, and it's not how any guest should be treated. The studio was dead silent. The weight of his words hung in the air. George's expression faltered, color rising in his face. He realized too late that Tom had seized control, not with anger, but with clarity. Tom, that's a serious accusation, George said. Now on the defensive. I'm doing my job, asking tough questions the public wants answered. Tom didn't hesitate. No, George. Real journalism involves facts, credible sources, and context. What you did here today was an ambush built on hearsay and prejudice. Every question was a trap, every implication carefully crafted to tarnish, not inform. And now, when I call it out, you accuse me of being too defensive. That's not journalism. That's gaslighting. The audience was riveted. Phones were out. Clips were already being posted online. George tried one final time. Desperation creeping into his voice. Tom, you're being overly dramatic. These are standard questions. Any public figure should expect scrutiny. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't do interviews. Tom turned to him calmly, almost too calmly. Let me explain what a standard interview looks like. George, he said, voice rich with experience. You ask about the film, the story, the work, the crew, the challenges. You don't come in with a narrative already written and try to mine quotes to support it. You don't throw out unverified claims and call it tough questions. And you don't use someone's faith as a weapon. He paused, the moment crystalline. What you did today wasn't standard. It wasn't ethical. And it sure as hell wasn't journalism. Standard questions don't include attacking someone's religious beliefs, Tom said, voice calm but firm. They don't include implying those beliefs make them unfit for their profession. And they definitely don't involve ambushing a guest who showed up in good faith to talk about his work. George's composure had cracked. His confident posture now sagged under the weight of what was clearly spiraling out of control. Tom, I think you're mischaracterizing this, he said, trying to recover. I was just trying to give our viewers a complete picture. Tom leaned forward, eyes locked on George. A complete picture? His voice carried disbelief. You haven't asked a single question about the film I'm here to promote. Not the story, not the characters, not the themes, not the crew's incredible work. Nothing about the process or the challenges. You've spent this entire interview trying to tear down my character with vague, unverified allegations and thinly veiled smears. That's not giving people a complete picture, George. That's manufacturing a hit piece under the guise of journalism. In the control room, the director hovered over the switch to cut to commercial, torn between damage control and the undeniable ratings gold unfolding live. Executives on the line told him one thing. Keep rolling. Social media was already on fire. Then came George's fatal misstep. Tom, if you can't handle tough questions, he said, his voice laced with frustration, maybe you should stick to entertainment shows that only ask about your movies. The studio went completely still. Even the ambient hum of the cameras seemed to pause. Everyone understood George had just admitted his intent wasn't to interview, but to interrogate. Tom's response was ice cold and precise. George, there's a difference between tough questions and ambush tactics. A tough question is asking about a dangerous stunt gone wrong, or creative conflict on set, or how a production overcame a major hurdle. Those are fair, even necessary. What you've done here is attack my personal beliefs, my integrity, and my career without citing a single verified fact. That's not journalism. That's sensationalism. And frankly, it's beneath the standards I thought this show held. George, now visibly red and flustered, tried to salvage something. Tom, I think you're being unfair. I'm simply holding you accountable as a public figure. Tom didn't miss a beat. Accountable for what, George? For doing my job. For showing up every day, working with the best crews in the business, and delivering for audiences worldwide. You keep saying accountability, but you've provided no specifics. Only anonymous sources and vague insinuations. So again, what exactly do you think I should be held accountable for? My faith, my work ethic, the success of my films. The audience began murmuring. Heads turned. Some shook silently in disapproval. Others pulled out phones to document what had clearly become a historic television moment. George tried one last move, his final mistake. I think our viewers can see for themselves who's being reasonable And who's having an emotional outburst on Lev TV? A gasp echoed through the studio. The host had just framed Tom's composed defense as an emotional outburst, while dismissing his own combative ambush as journalism. Tom rose from his chair. "George, I want the audience to understand something very clearly. I came here to promote a film that I and hundreds of professionals poured our hearts into. Instead, I walked into a character assassination attempt masquerading as an interview. I've been in this business for over 40 years. I've never encountered such unprofessional, biased, and frankly discriminatory treatment in a press appearance. Ever." George, sensing the walls closing in, tried to stop the spiral. "Tom, please sit down. We still have time in the segment." Tom ignored him, speaking directly into the camera now. Past George, past the studio, to the millions watching at home. To the crew and audience here today, thank you for your patience. And to those watching, decide for yourselves what journalism looks like. My new Mission Impossible film is in theaters now, made by a world-class team who deserve your attention far more than this sideshow. We didn't come here for this." He calmly removed his microphone. The symbolism wasn't lost on anyone. George, panicked, blurted out, "Tom, you can't just walk off in the middle of an interview. That's not how this works." Tom paused, mic halfway off, and delivered the line that would replay across every screen in America. "George, this stopped being an interview 20 minutes ago. This became an ambush. And I don't participate in ambushes. I came here as a professional to talk about my professional work. I'm leaving as a professional who refuses to accept unprofessional treatment." A scattered applause broke out from the audience. A few crew members, industry veterans who'd seen their share of difficult moments, nodded in respect. As Tom walked off the set, George made one final plea. "Tom, this is live television. You're walking away from the viewers." Without turning back, Tom delivered his final, legendary line, "No, George. I'm not walking away from the viewers. I'm walking away from you. There's a difference." The camera lingered on George, alone at the interview desk, his expression a cocktail of shock, embarrassment, and the cold realization that he'd just engineered one of the most spectacular public implosions in morning TV history. The control room finally cut to commercial, but it was too late. In under 30 minutes, George Stephanopoulos had turned a routine film promo into a PR disaster, and Tom Cruise had turned a high-stakes ambush into a masterclass in composure, clarity, and professionalism. Was Tom right to walk away? Or should he have stayed and continued the fight? Tell us what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more moments where Lev TV goes completely off the rails.